So, a warm hello and a delight for me to be here with you and in this way, and to begin the day here in California with meditating together in community. Thank you for being here. And as I mentioned yesterday, one of the qualities of mature Vipassana practice is the ability, well, let me say it a little differently, that mature Buddhist practice is sometimes described as understanding that nothing whatsoever is worth clinging to. Nothing whatsoever is worth grasping. And so it's a universal statement about all things. It's an omniscience of sorts. You know something, one thing at least, about all things. All experiences are not worthy of grasping. And so this kind of broad, universal kind of understanding. What allows that kind of statement and what supports it and what it comes out of is a capacity to have where your conscious awareness is 360 degrees, meaning that your conscious awareness is ready to practice with, to bring mindfulness to, whatever is happening in your experience. That there's not a division between that which is sacred and profane, that which is even in a certain kind of way, the division between what is shallow and profound. It's all equally worthy of awareness, of mindfulness, and this kind of mindfulness is able to kind of touch and connect to the full range of our human life. As we begin appreciating that, it becomes a center. It becomes kind of a home and a kind of place of freedom. But to really make it that way and to make it all-encompassing or 360 degrees, there is one area of mindfulness that is often overlooked. So in a conventional way, mindfulness is kind of like could be seen a little bit like a flashlight or even a lighthouse shining a light. A flashlight that is flashing its light on different objects of things that we then really look at carefully, really there to take in. And so we turn the light onto our breathing, our embodied experiences, our emotions, our thinking, like we did yesterday. And with that, we also open up to sounds and sights around us and all things that can be experienced. And in a sense, it's kind of like maybe like a flashlight shining light on it, in a sense, especially when we begin the practice. But at some point, the light gets turned around 180 degrees, that we're actually looking at the quality of the light. We're actually noticing not what we're aware of, but how we are aware. Not what we're mindful of, but the characteristics, the felt sense of, the quality of the mindfulness itself. And generally that takes a while, and the awareness, the mindfulness, kind of it helps if it's really stable, meaning we have an ability to rest and abide in the present moment with some continuity. over time. So we're not just flitting around from one thing to the other or getting distracted all the time. And situations where awareness keeps getting hijacked by our desires and aversions and fears and fantasies. And awareness really gets lost. We get lost. It's not that much awareness. We get pulled into this world of thoughts and things like that. But when awareness doesn't get lost and doesn't get swept away by thoughts and is stable and here, then at some point, the awareness, how we're being aware, becomes the salient thing. And this is closely related to how we are. There's what's happening and how we are in relationship to what's happening. There's the experience of breathing and how we're relating to that experience. There is the experiences of the body and how we're relating to that experience. The experience of emotions and how we relate to those. And the experience of the mind, of thinking, and how we relate to that. And it's in that how where the Dharma really opens up, because it's in that relationship where suffering, the suffering that Buddhism is addressing, is in that relationship. And so even if there's suffering, how are we in relationship to suffering? If we're happy, how are we in relationship to it? And that relationship can get clarified. And part of that is how we're mindful. Mindfulness, attention sometimes carries that relationship. Sometimes it gets entangled, and sometimes it comes along side by side. So in this meditation, I'll point you to some aspect of this. So to enter into a meditative posture, and to soften your eyes. Some of you might prefer to close your eyes, some of you keep them open, but soften your eyes. Let the eyeballs rest in their sockets. Some people find it helpful to, if there is an inner gaze for the eyes, gaze backwards and down. So we're not reaching out with the eyes. And to take a few long, slow, deep breaths. The deep in-breath is to connect to this time and place with this body. And the long exhale, a time to relax and settle into here and now in this body. Maybe on the long exhale, you can even wiggle your body a little bit. Help it relax a little bit more, release. And allowing your breathing return to normal. And with this normal enough breathing, on the exhale, relaxing the muscles of the face. On the exhale, relaxing the shoulders. Maybe adjusting your position of your hands a little bit if that supports more relaxation in the shoulders. And on the exhale, softening the belly. And And then maybe bringing your attention to your head, the space between your ears, behind your forehead. And if there's any tension or pressure or tightness or energy or agitation associated with thinking, I call that the thinking muscle. And on the exhale, to relax the thinking muscle. Relax the effort to be thinking. An effort that sometimes is quite weary, exhausted from a lifetime of thinking, preoccupation. And allow your thinking to relax as well. As you exhale, as if the thinking mind can ride the exhale all the way to a quiet place at the end of the exhale. And then, from the inside of your body, become aware of the body's experience of breathing. In that location where breathing is most pronounced or most comfortable, or where you have the custom of practicing mindfulness of breathing. As you inhale, receive the inhalation. As you exhale, allow it to go. Allow the exhale to release. Receiving and allowing. And as you're gently with your breathing, how would you characterize your awareness of breathing, your mindfulness of breathing? Is there any strain to be aware? Are you bearing down or pushing to be aware? Or are you holding back, hesitant, unsure of yourself? Is there a subtle confidence in your awareness? Or is there a subtle doubt or hesitancy? With the awareness, are you going out to know the breathing? Or is awareness receiving the experience of breathing? Is there any anxiety that goes along with being aware? A sense of caution? Is there any subtle feeling associated to being mindful of, I can't do this, this is hard? And if you notice anything that is extra, anything that's more than simply being aware, see if you can let go of it. Or if you can't let go of it, let it fall to the side. And highlight for yourself the radical simplicity of awareness that simply knows, simply is aware, somewhat like a mirror that just is aware of what is in front of it, without distortion or comment or preferences, just aware. Breathing in and breathing out. And then as we come to the end of this sitting, if we can appreciate that there's always two things happening. There's what is happening, and there's our relationship to it. And this ability we have to recognize the relationship, the attitude, the desires, intentions, the preferences that come along with what's happening, then we can avoid acting on those attitudes and intentions that are harmful. And we can choose those that are to act on those which are beneficial. Because it's a sacred realm, this realm of how we relate, the relationships between ourselves and our experience, ourselves and other people, ourselves and ourselves. That relationship is so important. And may it be that this practice of mindfulness supports us to avoid causing harm in the ways that we're connected to others and to this world. May we not hurt anyone, oppress anyone, diminish the value of anyone, and instead, may we benefit. May that relationship we have bring benefit, bring joy, bring freedom and happiness, ease. May we care not only for others and ourselves, but may we care for the relationship between, how we relate. And in how we relate, may it be for the welfare and happiness of all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be safe. And may all beings everywhere be free. So, my friends, we come to the end of this week, and for these days I've been somewhat presenting the basic, simplest way of teaching mindfulness that we do here at Insight Meditation Center and parts of the Western Vipassana world. And I want to say now, as we come to the last day, that the so-called instructions in mindfulness practice, so I have instructions to be mindful of breathing, body, emotions, thoughts, or instructions to be aware of the four foundations of mindfulness: body, feelings, mind states, and what's called dharmas, the inner processes that either lead to suffering or to freedom. And there's other kind of instructions. This is what you do, and focus here, and focus your attention this way, and and a little bit it gets can give the idea that we're doing. That's a doing practice. We're doing something with awareness and attention, directing it someplace. And it's a fine instruction to do that. It's wonderful to do. It's wonderful to be engaged and fully involved in whatever the task is at hand. And it could be meditation as well. And but the doing sometimes comes with all these extra baggage. There can be a lot of self involved in any kind of doing, even as simple as just bringing awareness to something. We're checking ourselves out as we do it. Am I doing it the right way? Am I doing it well enough? And I can't do this. And the person next to me meditating is probably doing it better, or I'm the best one, or something. All these, can be very, very subtle. Almost be subconscious. Some of these little attitudes of this is too difficult for me, and when I was a young student, I had this idea that if it was happening to me, it was not the right experience. And so I could never get it right because I had this subtle, almost unconscious idea that it was never right because it was my, whatever what I was. So it was kind of painful even to say it, that I used to be that way. Or the subtle idea that there was always somewhere else to be, somewhere else that I had to was the experience to have. And so it's always kind of, again, this kind of dissatisfaction with what was happening. And that came along with that doing. And then other times I discovered that there was such pristine purity or simplicity in the doing. It just like I would kind of forget myself in the doing of all kinds of things, and whether it was gardening or cooking or different activities. But also the same thing with this simple mindfulness of breathing. Just kind of give myself over completely to it, and any sense of me being the doer drops away, just because I'm so completely in it. And it's so simple. And there's so little attitude. But there's still a kind of instructions of where to bring your attention, what to do. So in a sense, mindfulness instructions can be seen as prescriptive. This is what you do. Another way of understanding these mindfulness instructions is that they're not prescriptive, but rather the descriptive. That it's describing what awareness is noticing. So there's no actively, searching for something or trying to do something or trying to get something or make something happen. But it's kind of settling back in a nice, easy chair and just noticing, being aware of what comes into awareness. So we're sitting quietly and a loud sound happens outside, and that just has arisen in awareness. And so the mindfulness describes what we're aware of. Oh, that's what it is. Not that we're actively describing, but it's more like the instructions are describing. It's like, oh, okay. So if the inhale arises, then we know the inhale, but not because we're practicing mindfulness of breathing per se as an intentional act, but more that we just know that this is what's being known. We know that this is what has arisen. And so the description of mindfulness as being all-encompassing means that there's an openness to awareness, openness to our sense of presence that is, you could say, receptive, that just receives whatever is coming and going, whatever is arising and happening. But to say receptive is already maybe a little bit too much of the prescriptive thing. It's like, okay, now I have to be receptive. It's more like the windows have been opened, and what happens? Maybe we hear the sounds of the birds, or the breeze comes into the house. And it isn't that we're intending for the breeze or wanting to hear the birds. It's just that this is what arises. And so we have eyes and ears and nose and tongue and the sensations of our body. And as we sit, what is known? What is known here? What are we aware of? What comes into awareness? So this kind of way of practicing, where mindfulness is more a description of what we know than a prescription of what to do, is how things begin to shift in practice when there's enough stability, when there's enough ability to not wander off in thought and mind being scattered. And so sometimes it takes a long time to really settle down and learn to recognize the forces of distraction, the hindrances, and the power of the desiring mind, and let all that come to rest and to soften and let go and quiet. And so to be able to just kind of be here fully in the present moment in a simple, very ordinary way, nothing special. Not trying to do anything except just allowing ourselves to be here and being open. And so then at some point, the practice has this more descriptive quality than a prescriptive quality. What helps to get there is that we have to really know ourselves well. And one of the strengths, I think, of mindfulness practice is that we are learning to pay careful attention to recognize many different dimensions of what's happening in the present moment. If the Buddha came, showed up, popped into the modern society, just somehow he teleported from ancient India to the modern metropolitan city, right in the middle of some big city, say New York City or something. And he wasn't prepared for the experience. He would be very, he knows how to be present. He's really there for the experience. He really, feels experience, knows himself well. And he was a walker. He walked all over India. So he starts walking through New York City. But he doesn't know the difference between a curb and a road, or what the lines on the road mean, or what traffic lights are, and what sign. He can't read English, and so he doesn't know what a one-way street is from anything. So, he's a lot of stuff he doesn't know, and so he's going to get into trouble pretty quickly, walking the streets of New York. So it's a silly example, same way with our minds. If we don't know aspects of our minds, we don't even know what we don't know. So, when I was a new practitioner, I didn't have a self-image of myself as being an angry person. And so there's a way in which I didn't recognize when I was angry. It was kind of like outside of my, my blinders that I had on, or what I would notice. And a whole range of emotions I kind of didn't really recognize or recognize how to bring them into awareness. And as I got the mindfulness instructions in mindfulness of emotions, I started, look at that, I didn't know that, all these things. And so my ability to be aware in a descriptive way, in this kind of choiceless awareness way, just aware of what's there, expanded now into a new realm. It wasn't so narrow, the world of what I became aware of. When I used to focus only on my breathing a lot in meditation, sometimes I felt quite present and wonderful and sometimes free and in good ways. But it was all within a narrow domain. And that through my life, I've learned to open up and see more and more that that it isn't that I now actively, intentionally practice with all these realms, but they're just there as part of the territory. Just like for you, if you're a driver and you're driving through New York City, you're not consciously, actively studying the lines on the road to interpret what they are, and or looking at a red octagonal, or maybe it's a six-sided stop sign, and kind of, what is that? It's just like second nature to see that as you're driving along, and so the same thing as we kind of learn the territory, learn the vocabulary, learn the letters, learn the kind of map of our own experience, and then the freedom we receive, the freedom that we have in the awareness of all things, it starts becoming more and more inclusive. And so there's a balance between practicing to discover what's here and practicing just to allow what's here. And those two practices go together really well. They're mutually supportive. And sometimes it seems like I'm ending up doing more of one. Sometimes I'm doing more of the other. The discovery part sometimes is a little more prescriptive, like this is what I'm doing. Sometimes the allowing part, just being free in the middle of stuff, is more descriptive. It's just, this is what's happening to my experience. So I hope this gives you something, what I say, gives you something to think about, explore, and to add some kind of little more richness to the practice of meditation and the practice of awareness. I hope it doesn't make you busy. Hopefully you have a sense of the metaphor of the mind, awake, aware, clear, resting in an easy chair, aware of what's happening. So thank you. So I have a couple of announcements. One is that these 7 a.m. sittings will continue now for the next 2 weeks in a wonderfully different way, in that this week that I taught was part of a 3-week series I'm part of called The Harmony of Zen and Vipassana. And a little bit these weeks of teaching to this week, I was trying to teach Vipassana in a way that harmonized a little bit with Zen. And so the next 2 weeks, my dear friends, Paul Haller and Fu Schrader, will give the teachings. And they're Zen teachers, both senior teachers at the San Francisco Zen Center. Fu is currently the abbess of the Green Gulch Zen Center. And they're dear friends, wonderful friends, and people I have tremendous Dharma respect for. And their Dharma, their practice is just really an inspiring thing. And I feel very fortunate that they'll come here and participate in this, our 7 a.m. community. And Paul will do it next week for these 5 days, and then those 5 days, and then Fu will do the last 5 days. And because this is the last time I'm going to be here for these next 2 weeks, I wanted to say that on May 8th, on a Saturday morning, we're going to have kind of a new and I think quite wonderful event and that is there's going to be a 5-week series called Mindfulness, Meditation, and Mindfulness Circle for Black identified practitioners. And so if you're Black identified, African American, and you'd like to come together with other Black and African American folks, with a wonderful teacher named Ann Royce, who I met this year. She's studying chaplaincy with me, and a wonderfully profound and long-time practitioner. And she'll teach mindfulness. One of the wonderful qualities, one of the aspects of her in terms of the Zen and Vipassana thing that we're doing this week, is she was a student of Suzuki Roshi, some 50 years ago, I guess. And so long-time practitioner and wise woman person. So there's information about this on the IMC website and different places, in the IMC calendar and also on the What's New in the IMC website. So thank you all very much, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. But I look forward to also being here with all of you as my wonderful friends offer their teachings. Thank you.